Daniel, welcome. Thank you for being here with me.
Well, thank you for having me.
I have to tell the story of the first time we met in person because we've been working together for a few years. Do you remember this? We met at a coffee shop down the street here, and you ordered a hot chocolate and a croissant at like 7 a.m. in the morning. And that's when I was like, I think I need to be a little bit more like Daniel Pahl because the person who orders a hot chocolate and a croissant rather than like a coffee drink or that's someone you want to be more like.
Okay. I was not aware of that it was so deep, but good to know. Good to know. And it was a little chilly, so I needed something warm. Could have go for the my go-to is a black tea, but in this case, I felt I needed a little sweetness, and so that's hence the hot chocolate.
It was the right amount of decadence, but yeah, that always stuck with me. Well, I would like to hear a story. I want to hear about one of your biggest wins this year.
I started with a brand in late April, and when I started, they were 9 months down year over year. And then starting in May till now, like last month, I was with them in August. We were beating last year every single month. One exception, July. I still call it as a win because they decided for their sale not to include the top three product they have, which they included last year. But other than that, we're crushing it, and yeah, that was good to see for the team. Yeah, if you're 9 months, you hear that you're not performing, and then you turn it finally around. So I'm always happy if we can achieve that for my clients.
No, that's amazing. Both of them are amazing. I'm very excited to see what a small Daniel Paul looks like. And on the other side, 9 months of being down year over year, that means that your customer acquisition has been low. And so to turn that around without getting on the sale drug, that's very impressive. What, if you can share, what were the key initiatives there?
You will not be surprised. It's investing in channels then that don't drive a lot of incrementality. We didn't have an incrementality provider for them because the spend is fairly low. However, I obviously with the work with you guys have a lot of experience and have a good understanding. Yeah, obviously depending on the client and brand and industry can be different. But generally speaking, you have directionally, we know by now what's working, what's not working. So shifted a little bit investment around. They worked with vendors, they charged way too much. Yeah, CTV, beef of mine, as you know. Yeah, if you pay CPMs north of $20, $25, that's way too much. So we changed things around, invested more in Google Shopping, my favorite, and things
We
started
clarify that as standard shopping.
started turning around. Yes, also the black box ASC. If the settings weren't great, we updated those, and things got better over time.
Nice. Well,
And
that's
sometimes
a
less is even more. You also have seen that, like investing less, but in the right channel drives more revenue, and then you can either invest in your product, in your people, in your customers. That's what I always also advocate.
yeah, absolutely. There's so many times where clients are saying, "Hey, we're missing our goals," and my answer is spend less, and that can be really confusing because wait, we're not reaching our goals. How would spending less help us get there? Like, well, spend less, spend smarter, and then reinvest that ad spend somewhere else.
Exactly. Uh, I had a hard time when I was a full-time employee to get that across because it sounds, as you mentioned, very counterintuitive. But as a consultant, you usually come in with a little bit more trust, if you would say, right? And so it's easier to relay the message there, and it's working 9 out of 10 times. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it truly does. That's a really good win. That would be hard to match. But you've worked with several really iconic brands. What do you think is the most misunderstood part of measurement today?
I mean, that's a loaded question. We can spend the whole conversation about that, right? But that's one thing I often see is and observe that the expectation by brands are that measurement answers every question they have. And there is, as you know, as we know, not one size fits all. There is for sure not the perfect answer. Like that's for sure, yeah. And So I think for me, measurement can be only directionally right. Yeah, and that's okay. It's okay to be directionally right. Yeah, when I come to my clients to say my goal is with you, I want to be more right than wrong. Yeah, so I do not try to answer every question. Yeah, and there will be um, some people say, okay, we'll use AI that will answer all our questions. AI can optimize our media planning and investing. I do not see that. I cannot see that happening, and it will be always a need for smart people, either agencies or in-house team, to answer this question. Long story short, I always see that they expect too much out of a measurement. Like you do not get every answer. And if you think back 50 years ago, these tools all didn't exist, and still marketers made the right decisions. So it's always a good gut feeling is always helpful.
Yeah. I I think intuition and experience, you can call it a gut, but really what it is it's a lot of experience playing out is something that you is really important to supplement measurement with. Because one thing that happens in my role a lot is we'll get a test back with an answer that we didn't expect. And that can be challenging because a lot of people are using measurement to confirm what they already know or what they already think they know. And so there's this initial reaction of, wait, we ran this test to confirm that what we knew was true. Now we're finding out that it's not true. And then we're tasked with why. Why did that happen? And that's one of the most important things that Measure does is digging in with the brand, with agencies to figure out why did we get this result. And usually it comes back to something in product or setup or creative or different channels overlapping, competing with. I mean, there's a million different avenues that you can take it, but the point being that incrementality and measurement is set up to help point you in a direction of this is working, this is not working, this is working better than others, this is not working as well as others. And then you can pursue that with the intuition that you have as a marketer.
And you brought up such an important point. I want to emphasize that. Most brands or individuals hope to get their opinion or their expectation get answered exactly the way they're expecting it, and want to basically only have a tool to confirm what they think. And we all I would include myself in that, but you have to reduce that bias. And then, because if it's, and likely if it's something new like incrementality testing, which not too many brands do, then you're surprised and you don't know what to do. And one thing I always look into people, like when I hire for teams, for example, is curiosity. As long as you have that, then an unexpected answer is not a problem. That's a huge opportunity.
Yeah. You might not like me so much after I remind you of this, but do you remember when we were working together and I said, hey, let's try a meta awareness campaign? And you're like, nah, this is not going to work. But to your point, you were flexible and you said, okay, let's go ahead and test it. And I was really hoping it was a meta view content campaign. I was really hoping that we would be able to get back some strong incremental results from the awareness campaign. And it came back no left. A good example of a few things. One, being having a hypothesis and learning that it's wrong, being willing to test things even when you're not bullish on it working, and then also flat reads. Flat reads are another really interesting part where there was enough momentum behind a strategy to say, hey, let's put a significant amount of ad spend there, even if it's only targeting 10% of the country, still 20, 30 grand potentially over the course of a few week test. And then to have it come back saying that didn't do anything for your business.
Yeah, I mean the awareness campaign, and you probably see that. At least my observation is that those things popping up more and more, coming from agencies, internal teams, and also because of our experience, I often do not recommend this anymore. It's either it's driving revenue or it's not. But it's if you do not drive only an awareness without any action. I mean, you and I talked about that so many times in the past. And so this is not my favorite campaign, to say the least, or campaign type.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen it work in a few instances, but it's different for every brand. And the notion that brand awareness is just brand awareness, and you might not necessarily see the impact of revenue in it. I think we talked about the analogy of like dropping a rock in a puddle,
I love
which,
that so much. I love that analogy so much. It
yeah.
couldn't get any better. I quoted you already 5 times or so in calls.
Well, to catch up on the analogy, if you drop a rock in a puddle, you're going to see waves come out of it. What won't happen is you drop a rock in a puddle, nothing happens, and then 20 feet out, all of a sudden there's a ripple as an effect. And that's how awareness spend works. That's the analogy that we're talking about here, where if you're starting to spend on awareness, you will not see nothing and then something. I had in a past life, I was talking with the affiliate team about incrementality, which affiliate's a very challenging one when it comes to incrementality, as we've talked about. One of the people said, well, what if you run a placement like in a publication in January and a bunch of people see it, nobody purchased then, but then Black Friday and Cyber Monday, they go ahead and make a purchase. And I said, look, you're never going to have an awareness campaign that has no effect when it is run and then has an effect 11 months later. That just doesn't happen. And so when it comes to awareness, being willing to test and see when it's working and see when it's not working, and not holding out for some effect that might happen, it won't happen, 11 months later when there's no effect now, I think is also super important.
Thinking about another analogy right now. Imagine you meet in January someone at a trusted place, a coffee shop, supermarket, whatever, like a trusted place, and a random person tells you about a product, how great it is and everything. And then you expect 11 months later to remember that conversation? Probably unlikely. Yeah, I will use that also going forward in conversations. Like, do you think is that the likelihood to happen, and the unlikely is it's very, very unlikely that that will ever happen. But you would be surprised. I'm pretty sure you hear that all the time. Lately, in the last 2 years ish, maybe a little bit less, I hear that in every single conversation with clients. That
Mm-hmm.
exactly we are aware this will not do anything right now, but going forward in the future that will help business. And I stopped counting how much I have heard it. I also stopped counting how often I proved that, or we proved like with analysis that
Mm-hmm.
that's actually not true.
Mm-hmm. Can I upgrade your analogy?
Go ahead.
You tell 100 people at a coffee shop, and not one person makes a purchase. But then 11 months later, you expect like 10 of them to.
Same
That's
thing.
more because, everyone's going to have this like, oh, I remembered something 11 months later, and then I went ahead and bought it because it was for somebody's birthday. They're going to have that anecdote. But what it is you're telling a whole crowd of people and no one's doing anything. And then all of a sudden, they're all doing something. Okay.
Very
Oh
nice.
my. Switching gears, but not totally switching gears. When you think about media waste across the brands that you work with, where does the waste usually hide outside of awareness? Because we beat that one to death. And how do you uncover it?
It's actually really funny to me because I have observed like often it's a small under the radar. There's a couple of things to it, but like one is the small under the radar affiliate. It's like, yeah, we have to have it. We don't really look at it, but it's still 10% of the spend. And 10%, it's a, or mostly, like most brands I work with, is around the 10%, some a little bit more, some a bit less. And then they don't look at it. Yeah, and you know how hard it is. It's like I'm leaning more if it's hard to measure and we have questions. I'd rather not invest in it. Yeah, that's how I look at it. But that's number one. And then sometimes I see it like in big channels because it just cannot be wrong. Like Meta, everyone runs Meta, so we're not even questioning Meta itself. Yeah, because everyone does it. We know since we started 10 years ago running meta ads, our business increased. Yeah, we increased revenue by X% every year. So it can't be wrong. Yeah, so that's the other thing. And my last point is that data, they're using wrong data. Um, yeah, so I often see, even with agencies, where they present uh, in-platform data in their dashboard. Yeah, and that doesn't tell me anything other than I maybe can compare in-platform data like campaign A with campaign B or creative A with creative A. But other than that, that doesn't tell me anything. So I'm always surprised, like the data source. Yeah, it's used for comparison, and obviously that's where the waste also lies. Yeah, that's probably the biggest. And I'm often surprised how less best practices are applied. I mean, everything is out there. You can even go to ChatGPT and probably get a solid answer in terms of best practices, how to optimize your Google campaign, how to optimize your TikTok or Meta. And I'm often surprised how little best practices are applied. What would you see usually?
The biggest area that I go to identify waste is probably frequency, um, reach and frequency. And while I'm not a fan at all of reach and frequency campaigns. Looking at reach and then looking at the frequency at which you are reaching that audience, I think is really critical to incrementality, because you need to ensure that you're reaching new people, new audiences, that you're raising net new awareness with. A lot of ad platforms are super literal. And so you tell them to optimize for conversions, and they're going to optimize for people that already have a high amount of intent built. And you'll start to see your frequency in a 7-day period get up to 4, 5, 6x. And that means that everyone who's seen your ad once in the last week has likely seen it 4 or 5 times. And so you start to reach diminishing returns really quickly. And that's where you can do that penny saved is a penny earned swap of taking ad spend that's oversaturating an existing audience and pointing it towards a net new audience. There was a very luxury fashion brand that I worked with in a past life, and like very luxury. And they had incredible performance with this clean green cleaning product audience on Meta, an interest audience. But what it was doing is it was taking the algorithm and pointing it towards something that was tangential. Like it was a higher household income proclivity to have these nice high-end cleaning products, but also completely unrelated from the fashion category. And it was helping the algorithm to find new audiences, whether it's a social or search or any other platform, finding new audiences. So looking at your reach and then looking at your frequency are that's the quickest place I go to identify off the bat waste.
I have a good example there for you. I haven't looked at. I will after this call. I will actually check it out. But
Yeah.
we had a started with a new client. We changed Meta campaigns to be purely incremental. Meta has brought out a new feature. I don't know how it's working. So, but we used to see in their old ASC setup, um, they set it up with like 15% of the budget going to existing customers. Well, it turns out 50%, it was like 50% of the sales were actually from existing customers. So no growth there at all. But the CPO looked great, $25. So we switched it up, excluded all website visitors for like 7 days or 30 days, I don't remember. We exclude existing customers, all of that. CPO went up to $100. In our overall data, Meta is by far the highest channel. No change. We're actually we got slightly more efficient. So what it was telling me is we're reaching time like the same audience, yeah, and now we're reaching new audiences. We're growing, not big. They will still need to optimize the meta campaigns. We still have a lot of to-dos. But that told me was the highest spending channel. The CPO up went 4x. Nothing in the total data.
Mm.
Zero. Actually slightly more efficient.
I had this conversation with a client yesterday because they were talking about triangulation. And there's like, well, we look at measured and but we really like measured, but we also look at Google Analytics and we also look at platform. And what I did, I looked at the faces on that call and I went, you use measured, you use Google Analytics, you use Facebook. Each person, triangulation was three people looking at three different data sources in order to have a discussion essentially about what they thought performance was. And when it came down to it, they said, well, if we're going to make these updates, they were adding in additional exclusions in order to push their campaigns to reach new audiences, which I was in favor of. And I said, in platform and in Google Analytics, your campaigns are going to look worse. Measured, your campaigns are going to start looking better. And it's exactly what you just described of it's an old saying, right? It's amazing what can be done when you don't care about who gets credit for the results. Kind of butchered it, but it's very true of media platforms. If you don't care about who's getting credit for the results and you just care about the end result, which is your P&L, that's when you really start to make some magic with your media.
That's where I'm trying to move every client I start with to. Like, I would create a report that has really only high level KPIs, rather less than more, and say, okay, now we're making changes and we'll see what it does to this report. It's all your data.
Mm,
It's no measurement inclusive. It's just Shopify revenue, and marketing spend, and then ROAS, new customer ROAS, CPO, and so on and so forth. That's it. And you would be surprised. It's so simple, but it like takes all out all the noise you hear. Like, and now with AI, it's screaming even louder.
yeah. I was going to ask you what KPIs you have, but those sound like the perfect ones. Once you got to new customer, I was like, okay, it's good.
New customers, like new customer orders, new customer sales, like total revenue, and then ROAS calculated on that, and CPO for those. Yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
usually look at.
Nice. You've seen media evolve a lot over the last decade or so. How is media buying different today than it was a decade ago? What's changed and then what hasn't?
So, what hasn't changed is brands still want to drive revenue, obviously, right? The way you get there has changed significantly. Um, think Meta. 10 years ago, I remember like we were trying so hard to find the perfect audience. You go drill so deep, you have so many campaigns or ad sets where you try different audience and you find that pocket and that works for a month or two, and then you try the next audience. This is all gone, obviously. Replaced by kind of a black box. Not great, but like if you leverage what's there, I think it's better for us customers, or like for the customer as a client in this case, because you focus on the most important thing. Because Meta also further developed. It's like now creative is the number one priority, assuming that your setup for campaign and ad sets is like based on best practices, but then you don't really touch campaigns anymore. It's like I don't do that with clients. Obviously, when Meta is changing something, you adapt, but it's like there should be a clear set of campaigns you should have, ad sets, targeting, which is usually broad targeting. If you then you go to retargeting, retention, but this is that's where you focus on, and then going only into creative. Be careful with the automation. And it's obviously these tools are built by Meta, Google, TikTok. They have an interest. They want to drive revenue. They show you the low-hanging fruits. I think that has. I don't know if our knowledge has changed over the 10 years, and we are more aware that actually what we see is not really what's true because there's lots of retargeting and retention in it. Um, I don't remember exactly how deep we looked there at the time. Yeah, but today it's like that's what I'm looking at, like giving the automation the guardrails it needs. Let the automation run its systems. They work really well most of the time, and then spend too much time on creative. That was not the case 10 years ago. Obviously, we spend time on creative and we test it and so on and so forth. But now it's like you set up your campaigns once, yeah, and then you go really hard in creative. And Meta I just got off a call with Meta. They have some really cool features for creative optimization now. Yeah, I'm pretty sure measured now. I have maybe tested it only once with measured, but I know that there are results out there that you see that it's even within different creatives, you see different incrementality results.
Mhm.
And,
Yeah.
and Meta is also like pushing that really hard.
Yeah, I think logically there's a lot of conclusions there. Like if you're just putting a dynamic product ad that's like the equivalent of a carousel and it's going right to a product description page, then it's going to typically have lower incrementality versus a video creative or an influencer creative that is illustrating the brand and getting buy-in not just for an individual product like on a clothing rack, but it's getting a buy-in for the brand as well. And we've seen that with video creative and influencer creative in particular. Yeah. Um, incrementality has shifted how you guide clients and think about investment. How has it shifted how you media plan?
You're probably disappointed in my answer. It has not shifted for me a lot because like I do not discriminate channels. And we go back to our previous conversation. Either a channel is contributing to the success of a business, of the brand, or not. Yeah. So for me personally, it has not changed a lot. But how I talk to my clients about it obviously has changed significantly. Yeah. I try to give them the examples you said about like the ripple effect we are seeing. I'm just like brand awareness. It's such a became such a buzzword um, in the last again for me 2 years from what I'm seeing and hearing, and either channel is contributing to the channel's mission, to the goals, yeah, whatever it is, if it's brand awareness revenue, or a channel is not contributing to it. Like a brand cannot exist with generating revenue. So I have a hard time with a sole goal of brand awareness. That
Mm,
that I'm having a really hard time to see that this can be the only goal. And like additional goal, nice, but at the end of the day, and I've seen it so many times, unfortunately, when the goal was brand awareness, we need to drive brand perception and so on and so forth. That usually comes with a shift in strategy, which I have not seen working. I've if this is the only goal, I have not seen working. What I've seen working is we'll focus on our core business, yeah, and we accept that certain channels do not drive immediate like or too much of immediate action, yeah, but it will help to raise the floor a little bit, yeah. That I'm fully behind. I just I'm sorry, I have not seen like a focus on incrementality. Sorry, it's a focus on brand awareness drive any incrementality. I have
interesting.
not seen that in a way where it's like it's the sole focus. What I've seen instead, unfortunately, is well, we're taking some money out of our like so-called performance marketing, taking it off shopping, Meta, whatever, like channels that drive revenue and have driven revenue over the last decade or so, and then put it into channels in the hope it drives brand awareness. I have seen brands actually struggling with that when they did that.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Right now in your role, you sit kind of at an intersection of strategy, marketing, and growth. What are CFOs or CMOs really pushing for in 2025 when it comes to marketing and specifically accountability in marketing?
Well, if you ask the CMO, they want to invest in the upper funnel. Yeah. If you ask the CFO, he would say, we need to drive revenue. We have goals. We want year. The board is on my back. Yeah. So that's the difference I'm seeing. That's the new thing, like the awareness pushed by agencies, teams, Meta and Google also pushing hard for it. But that's more what I see on the CMO side. Yeah, and for me personally, that brand awareness is not it's not a marketing channel per se. It's like brand awareness is yeah, you invest in the right marketing, you have the right messaging, yeah, but then also you have a great product, yeah, and you treat your customers really well. Yeah, that's the link I'm missing, but I'm still seeing that happening in the marketing teams. But clearly, it's funny. It's like when I'm sitting in meetings and we have meetings with clients where the CFO or the finance department is in there, especially for the planning and the CMO. And I see a discrepancy between what the CMO wants, understandably so, and what the CFO wants and what the CMO wants. Yeah, I see there the discrepancy, and at the end of the day, the CFO usually wins. We had another conversation today about with a client for 2026 planning, and there was all the whole chatter about like we need to do this XYZ because that will help the brand. That would create a project for many brand people involved of the brand wouldn't have done anything, and there was such a hard pushback from the finance side of things because we have all the like everything is already there. You might want to shift customers around, yeah, in terms of like their funnel, how they get to the website or how they navigate the website. But finance didn't allow that.
Yeah, interesting. Have you worked with Measured and a CFO together before?
Thinking how much the CFO was invested when you and I worked on New York and Company. Um, at least at the beginning, the CFO was pretty invested, so I have seen that. But usually, what I see, CFO love measured. Yeah,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, because what is like finance department's role? Like they give a budget to the marketing teams and with an expectation to get a certain amount of revenue back. Yeah. So what do CFO likes? Do they like, hey, I promise you 5 million next year? Yeah. And it turned out in the last year it's always be 1 million. Yeah. Or you go to CFO and said, okay, I can drive for the 1 million you give me incrementally, maybe 3 million. And,
Mm.
and that's usually what I like to hear. Unfortunately, I don't know, like probably a lot of marketing people don't like to hear that. CFO or finance should be more involved in the decision making than less. Not in which channel do we invest. No, not that. Not which creative. But it's like, what is the goal and having the accountability? It's like, okay, you signed up for goal XYZ. Yeah, that's the outcome. What are we doing about that? I would like to see that more. I'm a marketer for some reason that always got along well with the finance department.
Yeah, which is the reason we got along as well. I I love being at the intersection of the CMO and the CFO. When I was a little kid and I wanted to get into advertising, I thought that it was going to be all creating catchy slogans and maybe some creative aspects of it. And like even to this day, I signed a big client and I told my dad, "Hey, sign this client." He goes, "Oh, cool, you're going to redesign their logo?" I was like, not not quite, but it's interesting because I think CFOs have a little bit of trepidation to get involved with marketing because they think it's going to be subjective, it's going to be creative, it's going to be wordsmithing. But when it comes down to it, a lot of being a smart marketer now comes down to media planning and being able to figure out where you can allocate your budget to have the biggest impact. And so when CFOs get involved with Measured, you see this all of a sudden like a love of marketing because it's marketing numbers, it's the monopoly side that they enjoy and it comes together with the marketing team. And that's when I've seen CMOs and CFOs and that barrier that can be between them really break down and become a super productive relationship because they, for the first time, are speaking the same language.
Yeah, I think that's so important and should be not underestimated. Yeah, I have the same experience with CFOs or finance departments in general. And a tool like Measured or like in some incrementality provider can be so helpful to gain trust. At the end of the day, that's what counts in an organization that you gain the trust of your peers.
Yeah. So, speaking of media planning, Q4 is around the corner. I want to hear any advice that you have for brands going into Q4. And then I also specifically want to hear your advice for Q4 for brands planning their spend in Black Friday and Cyber Monday.
Oh, that's You will hear probably an answer you don't hear that often. So for the first part, probably not a surprise. I'm expecting, given the macroeconomic going on, tariffs raging, things are not as affordable anymore. Inflation is ticking up. So I am expecting a lot of discounting. Yeah, not great. Yes, I hear the concerns from brands that dilutes the brand image and so on, dilutes the brand image and so on and so forth. On the other hand, I don't have a good alternative. I don't know. I'm curious to hear from other people, like, what's the alternative? Because the noise will be massive.
Mhm.
I can guarantee you that already. Brands also start earlier. I mean, remember the good old days when we started maybe on Wednesday or Thursday, yeah? Then we started on Monday, and then other people started like 2 weeks earlier. One of my brands I worked at, we started like the month was all of a sudden the Black Friday or like the Cyber Month, and we gave discounts. So that's number one. The second one is also obviously the timing that's crucial. Yeah, when do you start? I see often for brands that say, okay, we don't want to participate in all the noise, so we start only on Friday. If you look at the data, you see already Thursday afternoon on Thanksgiving, when everyone has a full belly, they start shopping already, and you miss out on these audiences. I had in the last year two clients that under no circumstance wanted to start earlier. I shared them the data from the previous year. Turns out people start shopping. So we changed that. The other thing is, in terms of timing, I don't know, I don't have a good explanation from the customer side, but the weekend, Saturday, Sunday, is performs usually not great. What brands usually do, keep their spend super high or reduce it by, let's say, 20% compared to Friday. But it's still 50% up from your BAU before. And it's usually very, very inefficient. Yeah. And the last thing I have, and that's maybe the controversial part, is from all what I've seen so far, and you can share your experience, but I have seen that brands or customers know the brands they want to shop with. Yeah, usually you have this. I have here somewhere posted where I have made my list already, like what I want to look at. And it's not so much discovery of a brand. So with the brands I'm talking to, I was like, you know what? Let's bottom up our CRM. Like be really good. Yeah, have the timings right, have all the tactics, text, direct mail, email, obviously, and whatever like else you're using for your CRM tactics. Have that bottom up. Send rather one email more than less. Yes, there's the concern about unsubscribes and so on and so forth. Not super relevant. I have seen brands that send multiple emails a day and they wasn't hurt. I mean, we had a client together that
I
did
know who
that.
you're talking about.
So it was not super hurtful. What's really hurtful is the overspend. Yeah, so that's what I try to explain to clients often, more often than not. It's like it's not so much discovery. Yes, I know what brands will say now that listen to us would say, "Oh, but I see our numbers, our new customer will go up." That's true, yeah, but likely they might have heard about you before. Yeah, so I rather invest less on the Black Friday and Cyber Monday, more than on your BAU days, but less than what you originally do, and go really hard on your CRM and use providers that help you with your CRM, like a movable ink or a Wonderkind or like you name it, right? That's how I look at it. And like back to Saturday, Sunday, is like I have this conversation with every client. I had this conversation with every brand I worked at. And they said, no, we're doing it. Then we looked at the data retrospectively and say, oh, you're right. We should have spent less. For some reason, 11 months later, it's forgotten again. And we do it again. It's like, that's probably what I would say. What are you expecting? And what are you seeing?
I, well, so we've seen pretty strong performance so far this year on the fashion side. There have been a few months. May was a pretty challenging month for apparel brands, and the beginning of June, and then kind of towards the end of June, we started to see a bit of a turnaround there. I think the fashion vertical has been somewhat isolated, even though they were very impacted by tariffs. The cost of goods there is so low, the tariffs on the cost of goods, and so it hasn't had as large of an impact because the ratio of the cost of goods to the MSRP is so much different than other product categories, and people are still, for the most part, really they're still buying their clothes, and buying into trends and fashion as more people spend more and more time on social media. It's really pushing style trends to evolve very quickly. So with that in mind, I think that September and October, we know from past analysis, customers acquired in those 2 months for apparel brands typically have the highest lifetime value of any month acquisition cohort.
You
Couple
say
outliers. Yeah, go ahead.
the month like September, October, these 2 months?
Yes.
Interesting.
Those 2 months have the highest customer lifetime value. And my hypothesis on it is when you acquire customers in those 2 months, you're typically not on sale. Fall styles are a little bit more expensive, so you're acquiring a very high quality customer. And then we know the vast majority of customers that will make a second apparel purchase do so within 30 days of their first purchase. And it's timed very well for Black Friday and Cyber Monday. So then you end up getting, you acquire a full price customer, which is a higher quality customer. Then you have them come back for their second purchase during Black Friday and Cyber Monday. And while that is a discounted time period, you also know once a customer has made 2 purchases, they're much more likely to then make it to that third purchase cohort. And all of a sudden, your average lifetime value for customers acquired in those 2 months are much higher than the rest of the months. Sometimes March and May can be competitive if it's a brand that's very focused on dresses specifically. But for most fashion apparel brands, their most valuable customers are going to be acquired in September and October. And so because of that, yeah, when you're looking for what do I do to set up my Black Friday and Cyber Monday for success, to your point, most people have already picked out the brands that they're going to purchase from. And so, but they're picking them out now. And so it's not the cheapest time to acquire new customers because your brand is full price, but it is one of the most important times to acquire new customers because it's going to not only set you up for success now, will also set you up for success in the future.
And would you then actually suggest for brands, and you have analyzed that for fashion specifically,
Mm-hmm.
it sounds like for like at least for like fast moving products like fashion, and that's not only fashion, that sounds like a reasonable strategy for more brands. Usually, obviously, the July, August is fairly low. September it goes slightly up, and so would you suggest then in this case pushing budget a little bit forward, like taking it out of Black Friday, Cyber Monday period into September, October? Would that be a suggestion?
Yes. So for most brands, I would either suggest spend less during Cyber 5 and spend it somewhere else, maybe not even on marketing, or pull some of that budget up into September and October in order to set your Cyber 5 up for success. Yeah, exactly. And one thing that I've been recommending to several clients is doing longer term testing. I'm by no means a surfer, but I know that you have to paddle before the wave. And the same thing works for if you're going to do any awareness or top of funnel campaigns, even if it's a prospecting conversion or a partnership or an affiliate play or something, a TV play, something along those lines. Um, Getting that awareness in now and measuring week over week the incrementality of that performance. And it can even be in a test cell so that you don't have to spend at a national level. And then watching that momentum hit through the holidays. And then also what happens after that holiday period can be really interesting because ultimately, if awareness isn't going to work for you in September, October, November, it's not going to work for you in January, February,
A
March.
reoccurring theme in our conversation. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So the only challenge I see with that, I don't have a
Mhm.
great solution, is but in our world, in the digital world, like we believe we we have all the data and we know we have data. Not sure if we have all the data we need, but it's like we have a lot of data and we believe we can get answers fairly quickly. What you're saying is actually takes a lot of time. Yeah. So you have to follow the customer. Yeah. You say 2025, you decide to change the strategy. You invest more in September, October, less in for the Cyber 5. Yeah. Then you follow these customers, and like your action is a year later, which I think makes sense. Absolutely makes sense. But like knowing our industry and knowing the desire to have all the answers immediately available, it's hard for convincing the CEO, CMO, and maybe even CFO. CFO probably would be on your side, I guess. But it's like that's I see often a challenge if it takes longer. But it absolutely makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
100%.
Well, I've gotten in trouble for this before, but there's no amount of salad I can eat today to fit in last year's jeans tomorrow. It's the same thing with
I
marketing.
like that.
It
Like
it
if I need
takes time.
analogies, I should just call you because like you have the good ones.
Oh my goodness. I unfortunately it just takes time. It takes time to build a good strategy. It takes time to have very concrete answers. When I was on the agency side, I was asked all the time for quick wins. And it's, quick wins, going viral, is there a magic button? Those are the three questions. And I'm sure you get them all the time as well. But I, to this day, have not been able to think of a quick win that will not compromise performance in the future.
The only thing I could think of, but that's I would also not call it a quick win, is like if you were moving in the wrong direction with your marketing program, the quick win is to turn it in the right direction. But I would not even call it the win because it should have been already in that direction.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there
You
is
can
not,
stop the bleeding. You
you
can
can
stop the
stop the
bleeding.
bleeding, exactly,
Yeah.
but you cannot, there is not that magic bullet. It's like I wish it would be there. It would make my job a lot easier.
Yeah. My mom always says about caffeine, it's borrowing tomorrow's energy today. And that I think that's what quick wins do as well. It's borrowing tomorrow's revenue today. If
Okay,
it's
now
a
I know where the analogy is coming from. It runs in the family.
yeah, well, they're also ones that would order a hot chocolate at coffee when they have a coffee. So, oh my. Well, I want to be mindful of time, but I want to play a game if you're up for it. Love it or list it.
Okay.
I've just written down a whole list of things I'm curious about. And if you want to tell me love it or list it, or if you want to give me some explanation or some caveats, I'm all ears for that too. Sound good?
Sound good. And
All
listed
right.
as leave it.
List it means no thanks.
No thanks. Okay.
Awesome. All right. So love it or list it. AI ad copy.
Definitely love it. Maybe it's not there yet, but it will be. And I would rather test today than tomorrow when our competition is already ahead of us. Definitely.
Nice. Demand gen.
You're probably not surprised. List it.
I'm not. Incrementality testing.
Love it.
Partnership ads.
I'm torn on this one, and as you can see, for certain industry and brands, it's working, and for some, it's not. I'm indifferent.
Okay. Welcome offers.
Welcome offers, generally, I'm a fan, but it's also, if you look at the other side of the equation, you give new customers like some perk, and your important existing customers that are with you a while, they don't get anything. So I'm torn, but it helps obviously acquisition. If I have my acquisition hat only on, love it. If I have my full funnel hat on, it's like I'm indifferent.
All right. Pinterest ads.
I know you're a fan. Working with a brand right now, the results aren't great, but when we talked last time, I looked at the campaign setup. It's also not perfect. But we have to stick to the setup. Pinterest supports that test. So I hear you. I just have not seen it.
Fair enough. We'll talk about it. But add in exclusions. All the exclusions you can possibly add in, add them in. Otherwise, it won't work as well. TikTok shops.
Listed, and I tell you why. It's like and there's two problems I have with that. Number one, you do not own. I mean, you own the customer, but you do the communication with the customer. You do not own that much. There's lots of data you lose when you work with TikTok shops or any other like shop product. That's why I'm not a fan. The other problem is it was for free. I think even supported by them at the beginning, and now they're taking higher and higher fees. I had a conversation with a potential client, and she told me it was a beauty brand, which is obviously perfect for TikTok. And she said, "Well, it's like it doesn't make sense anymore for us. Yeah, we're not making any money anymore, and if they increase." Putting aside the fact that TikTok might go away, I don't think so, but like potentially it's going away. So no.
Hmm. Interesting. I will add to that, TikTok drives a disproportionate amount of revenue to Amazon. So if you are running a lot on TikTok and you don't sell on Amazon, you're going to be raising a lot of awareness that then is captured by a competitor. And even TikTok Shops has a very significant impact on Amazon. And so you can end up paying cost there and cost to Amazon, which can make it really difficult on the margin. So I've seen TikTok Shops work very well for some brands, but it's hard on the margins.
But yeah, even with like increased pricing, it's still working for them.
Yes, but beauty and fast fashion.
Hmm. Okay.
Running interest audiences on Meta.
I think that time is over. Listed.
RIP. Programmatic ads.
Listed. That's one of my biggest pet peeves at all.
Commissionable influencers like Creator Co. Like to know which shop my.
I think that's depending on the brand. I mean, we all have seen how great influencers can be, and no matter what the source is where you like find them. But I've also seen that like we went in high expectation and it completely failed. I think it's really dependent on like the industry, maybe even the timing. I mean, you and I were like in your agency times, we were talking more about like creator ads, yeah, using the content more than like using like the message of their big platform. It's like if you're a smaller brand and you cannot afford it, it's like you can definitely afford creator ads, and that's what I'm also bullish about. Or you have learned by now that things have changed. I'm not aware.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of influencer ads and platforms like that that are getting more content and allowing unique reach. Just anything to reduce over reliance on Meta and Google, which like 35% of spend on average is going to Meta and just shy of that on Google. So you're looking at 70% of spend just going to two platforms alone, which is a pretty big risk for any brand. Evergreen promos.
Is that evergreen promos in terms of like the acquisition promo we talked about, or like
Not a
we are
welcome
always
offer.
15% off, 20% off? These
That's more what I was going for.
probably listed because like almost every brand I worked with that ran that strategy tried to get away from it because of like such a hit on the margin, customer expectations, and so on and so forth. And like in the long run, it always hurt. So I probably would say get rid of it sooner or later, but also do not expect like a turnaround in like a month or so. I forgot which brand it was, but it took us 6 months like until we could turn it around. And I had another brand that tried it in 4 weeks and were totally disappointed that that didn't work.
I would say 6 months is a pretty fast turnaround. If you're fully addicted to evergreen promos, that's yeah, 6 months is conservative. Direct mail.
Oh, I love direct mail. I love it. Uh, Most brands don't want to run it. I love the notion of it. Like you have a product that potentially sits at the customer's house or potential customer house for quite some time if it's a good creative, if it is something you want to keep. I kind of
Wow, okay. We found our one thing that we haven't agreed on yet. We'll talk more about that one.
okay. I'm
Low
curious.
lo-fi content.
I don't want to like distinguish. Yeah, you could argue that's maybe not brand safe or something like that. But at the end of the day, what works, that works. As long as it's like in the brand guidelines.
Okay, fair enough. Snapchat ads.
Um, I haven't had brands that like had the age group they were working with would or going after where Snapchat had worked. We worked with Snapchat in my last full-time role, and it didn't work at all. But it was also an older audience, was a subscription model. So yeah.
Yeah. One more, Reddit ads.
Uh, I'm torn. Massive audience. A lot of things happening on Reddit. I didn't have one brand that wanted to test it, unfortunately. I would love to test it. I would like to run it, just because of the sheer size, yeah, of audience. I have no performance data. Curious, what do you guys
Yeah.
see?
We're starting to see more brands test into it. I've seen brands with a male audience perform okay,
Yeah.
not at this scale or incrementality of the larger channels, but there are no small channels that you can say that of. But it maybe will have potential in the future.
Yeah, I mean, there's couple tools out there to manage Snapchat. Sorry, Reddit.
Mhm.
Smartly brought out like a tool where you can manage all your campaigns within Smartly. So that could be interesting, like from creative perspective, testing perspective. I really want to run Reddit.
Mm.
At least
Yeah.
I want to know. I want to
Yep.
test it in different industries, different times of the year, different messaging. I'm really curious about.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll keep you posted. Last one, measured.
Well, what about it?
Love it or list it?
Oh, love it, love it, love it. I mean, uh, yes, obviously we have a measured conversation here and we're all biased, but on the other hand, it's like every time I used measured with a client, the client did better after. If we followed, not your example, having like three different sources to look at, if we follow like the results measured, and obviously you need your portion of gut feeling experience included, I have seen it working every single.
Yeah. That before I worked at measured, uh, measured worked for me.
Same. Like, I mean, we together have seen it at multiple clients before, and it's working. Obviously, you need to you need to learn to feel uncomfortable with what you see and the decision you make based on that.
Yeah. Yeah. Learning to be uncomfortable, learning to be wrong, learning to run tests that are going to show you where you've been making mistakes so that you can correct them. It's all so uncomfortable, but so important. And it can make such an incredible difference. I know we've seen it together several times and hopefully several more times in the future, but it's always fun to, like, once you get over the discomfort of it, it's really fun to be able to have the information that you need in order to make decisions that genuinely make a difference.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate chatting with you always, and I know we could go on for another hour. It's crazy that it has been an hour.
Already an hour? Oh, I didn't see the clock. Yeah, it's 59 minutes. Or wow.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So next time, uh, we'll do 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah, we'll love that. We'll love that. And then we should need to talk about direct mail apparently.
Yes, we do. We do. That'll be our next one.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.